Style Slicks, a Q&A spotlight on notable Southern style disruptors who made game-changing career moves in fashion, design, art, architecture, music, cinema, sports, and culinary arts. First up, the Atlanta creative scene. Richie Arpino, hairstylist, philanthropist, photographer.
You know, I define style as it's a personal thing. Like, everybody has their own style. When I was growing up in New York in the 70s, during the days of Studio 54, that was a totally different style. And I kind of conformed to that style. But then I also was kind of a hippie guy too. But as style for me, as far as now is concerned, I have my own style as far as hairdressing is concerned, my own style as far as when I do photography, but it's not conservative at all. My style is just a little avant-garde. My definition of style has definitely changed over the years because when, like I said, back in the day, I was a totally different person. I'm a little bit more mature, even though I don't act as mature as sometimes, but I don't know, I think it's a little bit more refined. I think that's more of the word I would use for my style now. My first career was hairdressing. I started 40 years ago. I've had my salon for 40 years. And I have had great success. If you would have told me 42 years ago that I was going to be a hairstylist living in Atlanta, Georgia, I would have said you're crazy, because I wanted to be a rock star. So my girlfriend at the time, Sandy Pedalino, she told me to go to hairdressing school with her one day, and I was like, all right, I'll try it out. So I ended up being really good at it. I was really good at it. At the end of it, I started teaching hairdressing to some of the kids. And but I was still playing in bands, you know, I was still playing in coffee houses all over New York, and so I still had that part of me that still wanted to be that rock star. So and then cut to about, I'm going to say 20 years later, I was working with a lot of photographers doing hair and makeup as their hair and makeup artists for tons of catalog and a lot of photo shoots. And I would be that annoying person that Troy would say, I would say, why don't you shoot it over here? Or why don't you shoot it over here? And they would say, Arpino, just go ahead and do your hair, okay? But I always had my own little sense of style where I thought maybe I could do it better. So one day I picked up the camera, and that's how I got job number 2. So the nice thing about what I do is I can do both. I mean, I took up photography, like I said, probably 15, 20 years ago. And I can now do the hair for the models that I do. So I actually have the best of both worlds, where I could still do my hair styling and I could do the photography. And I get to do it under my own, you know, rules instead of listening to somebody else tell me what to do. I think the great thing about both jobs that I have, I'm fortunate to have, although my hairdressing job is still my main source of income, and I'm blessed with the fact that I could do photography on the side as well, or interact them together. But I think what I brought to the table for both of them is that interaction with my clients. So as a hairstylist, if you're a good hairstylist, you're always constantly talking to your client and you're finding out what they want, you know. It's not all about you, it's what they want. So the same thing with photography, you talk to your model or you talk to the client about what they want. And then you bring your sense of style into that. So I think my biggest challenge was convincing people that I was a photographer, because I remember so vividly, I was lucky enough to, when I first started photography, I would call up some of the models that I used to do their hair, and still do, and I would say, hey, do you want to do some photo shoots with me for fun? You know, I wouldn't charge them. It was called a test back then, still is. And so I would do a testing for them, and then they would bring it to the modeling agency, and the modeling agency agents would say, who shot this? And they said, Richie Arpino. They said, the hairstylist Richie Arpino? And they said, yeah, he's doing photography now. So I got a little bit, all the agents were calling me going, I'm really liking your stuff. I'm really liking your work now. So they started sending me more models. And I ended up building a nice portfolio. And then I got the attention of magazine covers and people in local Atlanta magazines and stuff like that. I mean, this is all my great stuff. I worked with a bunch of wonderful people, wonderful models, and I built up a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful portfolio. And I think that it all came to play together. And I'm, like I said, I'm pretty fortunate in the fact that they both relate together. I think what my brand of Richie Arpino on both parts is we have our own line of hair products that I've had for over 15 years now. Some of it's called Arpino. We have biotin shampoo, so I think the brand of Arpino is out there. The brand of It, which is our hair cutting line, is great. But I think what I was mainly known for was my black and white photography, which I love doing still to this day. And I was doing photography, back in the days of black and white when you could bring it to a place where they would print black and white film. There was no digitals, so you could never, like now it's a totally different world because of course we have digital cameras and you could just you look at the camera and say, okay, I got this. But then you take rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls until you think you got it right. And then you bring it to get developed and go, well, maybe I didn't get it right, so let's do it again. I think my medium is mainly black and white photography, and I love it. And I've always loved it. I've always admired photographers like Herb Ritts and his black and white photography, and Bruce Weber's photography with the Abercrombie and Fitch ads, and I used to love all that stuff. And so that's what I kind of aspire to. I think the trends probably change along with the mood of the country. I mean, right now we're in a very strange time, and we're always in strange times. This world is crazy. But I think people tend to, what is the word? They kind of adjust to it, and they kind of do it with the way they dress, with the way they do their hair, with the way they, I think people adjust to their environment. I think what my brand does is it probably helps people as the photography part, it gives them a little more self-confidence, because that's what we all need during any time. Whether the world's in a great economy or bad, or people are sick, we all need to feel good about ourselves. So when I do my photography, I really make people feel the best they can feel, make them look the best they can look at any age. I did a calendar this year, which I'm so proud of. I've done a calendar for the past 15 years, and I've donated every bit of my money to charities, from AIDS charities back in the day to cancer. And this year I was really able to do a beautiful thing. I did a calendar called Flower Power, and it's called it's Fabulous Women Over 50. And I found 12 of my greatest girlfriends, and I'm lucky to have 12 great girlfriends that are over 50 and look fabulous. And I shot them all in flowers, with flowers all around them. And I had a huge party, and I got to donate over $20,000 to breast cancer and cancer research at Emory University. And so I think something like that helped my brand, but I didn't do it for my brand. I did it mainly to help people that have cancer or people that had AIDS. So I think by doing the hair and the photography together and creating these calendars, even though people don't look at calendars anymore, they still buy them, because you still like flipping through them. I still write on my desk through one, but I think that part of my brand really, really, really was most gratifying to me. So I've had many, 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 many funny career moments over the years, but this one is I think one of my funniest. It was about 15 years ago. I'm not going to mention the name of the magazine because they're still around and I love them. But I'm not going to mention the photographer. But I was very good friends with a girl named Jennifer Tilly, who's an actress in LA. And we're still close friends, and she's was on Bullets Over Broadway and Bound, and she's Academy Award nominated actress. And I got her to come to Atlanta, and they were going to use her for the cover, which they did, and a 6-page editorial spread. So they hired a photographer, because I wasn't a photographer back then, I just did her hair. And I got my friend Wayne Van Nujian back then to do the outfits, and she's a beautiful woman. We went on location everywhere. And so the photographer, it was back in the days when I had those little Instamatic cameras. I mean, this is a long time ago, this is 20 years ago. So I was using the Instamatic camera to take pictures of her for myself. And the photographer, just like the other ones, said, "Get out of the way with that, little piece of junk." So I still took pictures of her because I wanted some pictures of her myself that I could use. So I cut to a week later, I hear from the photographer, and he said to me, he starts crying. And I said, "You're crying, what's the matter?" He said, "All the pictures of Jennifer are gone." I'm like, "What do you mean they're gone?" He said, "Well, I bought a new camera, and it cut off all the pictures at the top. So there was no film of Jennifer's 3 days in Atlanta, Georgia." Now, this top actress we brought in from LA. And so he said, "How am I going to tell the magazine?" I said, "Well, I guess you're going to have to tell the magazine." I said, "But that little throwaway camera, I've got some if they want to see it." No. So the magazine called me and said, "Didn't you take some pictures?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got some Polaroids, and stuff." So they took it, and I ended up getting the cover and the 6-page editorial of Jennifer just with my little Instamatic camera. And now I think today, I said, maybe that's why I became a photographer. I don't think I've had many failures with my business. I mean, and it's not a failure. I just wish that I would have started sooner. So I would have been booked for that cover of that magazine. Success to me, I think, depends on the individual. Like, you can be successful if you're happy working in a coffee shop, being a barista. You could be happy. Just, it's not about money anymore. It's about what's in here. Even when I wasn't making as much money as I am to date, when I was 21 years old and, had nothing, I was happy. I was just happy. And I've always been happy. I get that from my mother. My mother instilled that in me, I think. And I think that's probably the greatest thing on earth. I would be that rock star that I wanted to be when I was 17 years old. But you know what? I'm still doing it. I'm still playing my guitar. I'm still taking pictures. I'm still doing hair. I'm still with people. And I don't know where I'd be without people. And so now I'm a rock star hairstylist.
Perfect.
For somebody who's about to make a career change, I would say go for it. Do not give it up, because I got beaten down as a photographer. People are like, "You're a hairstylist. Well, you can't be both." I'm like, "Well, yes, I can." And I didn't have to choose either one, but if I had to choose, who knows what I would have done. I mean, but I think people, if you really, really, really have a passion for it, you need to go out and do it, because, like I said before, you need to be happy. And even if it's not going to pay you that much money in the beginning, if you're very, very passionate about it, I think success will come later on.